All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Got all your liquids and everything? Not dehydrated at all yet? It's only day one, so I'm hoping you're prepared for this. So my name is Daniel Chiu. I'm from the VxRail technical marketing team at Dell Technologies. This is Scott Forehand. He's a manager at global infrastructure at Topgolf. And we're here to talk to you about real-world use cases for seamless edge-to-core deployments for VxRail. It's a good amount of content here, so I'm going to move forward here. So this is what we'll be covering in this presentation. First, a little bit more about Topgolf. Actually, how many people know about Topgolf? Okay, so pretty much everybody here. So that's good for you.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. How many of you guys have been to a Topgolf? And keep your hand up if it wasn't Vegas. Okay, not bad.
Oh, that's
not bad
good.
at all.
This is really good. All right, so in terms of learning more about Topgolf, I don't think you have to spend too much time there.
No.
So we can get into like the technologies behind the features and services that you provide at Topgolf, and some of the things that is underpinning some of that technologies and services. Then I'll be talking about the challenges at the edge. So there's no one single edge profile. I'm pretty sure you all know about that. There are a lot of different requirements at the edge for edge sites. And you can list it all down and you can put it in categories. All of them kind of conflict with each other at times. But I just want to give a level set here and just kind of provide you a list of edge requirements that we have gathered to give a sense of like what are the edge profiles that we have seen, because we don't have just one solution in the VxRail portfolio for the edge. We have multiple solutions for it because the edge profiles vary greatly from one company to the next, one industry to the next. Then I'm going to touch upon on the VD4000. This is our latest platform that is super flexible, and I'm going to talk about a lot of different use cases with Scott in terms of where he sees the VD4000 is going in terms of where it's going to apply in his environment, because super flexible platform. You can deploy it as a single node, a two node, or you can actually stack it up to 64 nodes for a vSAN cluster. So a lot of flexibility there. So we're going to touch upon that, and Scott's going to talk about what is an edge site for Topgolf and kind of get into that, why they chose VxRail, what the features and benefits that they really what they actually value most from VxRail, and a little bit about what their plans are for the VD4000. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Scott.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. So I guess I really don't need to go too in depth into Topgolf, so we'll just talk about a couple of the things that we've got going on in our portfolio, right? We have the venue business, we have range business, we have business for PGA Tour. You've probably seen our technology on TV watching any golf tournament. We have partnerships with huge AAA mobile games. It really kind of spans a pretty big breadth of different disciplines that we have to kind of take and mold into a VxRail, mold into our infrastructure, and create an experience, right, for our players. So we've talked about the venues. You guys are all familiar with the venues. I'm sure folks watching are familiar with venues. What we don't really cover are some of the weird niche things that we do that also fit edge use cases. So one of those is Topgolf Live. We take Wrigley Field and turn it into a Topgolf for a day, right? We have a truck that also is under that Topgolf Live brand that will drive to any location and set up a couple of hitting bays. It's not just a Topgolf venue when you think about the Topgolf brand. We do events, we do entertainment, we have award-winning food and beverage. It's a whole smattering of things kind of rolled into one nice entertainment package, because all we're looking to do is give people a good time, make sure that our players have a good experience when they come to Topgolf. So driving into the technology, we have a whole lot of IoT devices in a venue. Everything from the RFID in the target itself to the dispenser that spits out your ball. All of the scoring displays, the AV systems, the ball tracing with AI/ML that we leverage VxRails to deliver, and then the 3D gaming that we do on VDI with Horizon, right? That's kind of core to the experience at a Topgolf on the gaming side. We constantly have to dig in and figure out the right way to move forward whenever we are rethinking a solution to try and either save money or build something that's more resilient than what we've had before. And with VxRail, we've been able to do that. Every single Topgolf around the globe, every one of them, is an edge data center. And that edge data center needs to be able to run independently of internet connectivity, right? So that's kind of what drove us to VxRail, is being able to run that in a bit of a pod. They're all embedded vCenters with everything that they would need to run sitting there in the venue. And we're taking that philosophy further with, office deployments, with different office deployments where they require labs. So we have offices in Dallas, Stockholm, and San Francisco. And the Stockholm office and the San Francisco office have a need for GPU in that office so that they can test some of the things that we're doing, right? We're looking currently, we haven't done it yet, but we're looking currently at VD4000 to satisfy those workloads, because VD4000 being pretty well customizable, we can run just standard workloads on it or GPU workloads for those labs specifically out of that VD4000 and not have to worry about having a cluster of 5 VxRails that costs a decent amount of money for us to build in the first place and then maintain going forward. And some of those sites, they don't have really the environmental conditions that are supportive of a data center, like when we build a Topgolf. Those sites have been there forever. They're small offices with like a little IDF. So we had to find something that fit that use case, and Dell kind of delivered with that VD4000. So that's our next step.
Yeah, we got a couple slides on the VD4000 to kind of look at the specs and things like that. So you can get an understanding of how configurable it is and like all the deployment options that it comes with, and really like you'd be amazed by like the actual size of the VD4000, because we actually had one of our product marketers at Dell Technologies World put it in their backpack and go from one breakout session to another to kind of just showcase how portable that is. 20 to 28 pounds fits in a backpack.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the next slide here. Topgolf specifically has huge partnerships with Dell, VMware, NVIDIA, LG, and Cisco that kind of enable the technology stack at the venue, right? So the Dell partnership's been invaluable. VMware partnership's been invaluable. We've been able to bring those companies to the table to kind of develop a solution that works for us, because nobody else on the planet is currently doing this. And I know that because it's been a headache for me for like 3 years. But we've been able to kind of steer the product with the product teams, with the help of VxRail engineering and with the help of VMware engineering, to develop a solution that really works for us and the core of our business and deliver something to our players that nobody else can do, which is fantastic.
Heavily involved in the customer feedback, because the amount of engagement in our partner, those features get into our roadmap pretty quickly, and they get into the product pretty quickly as well. So we definitely make use of those opportunities where we have those forums to talk to customers and really get that feedback and see what needs to be added in terms of meeting those use cases that evolve in your business.
Yeah, for us it's been huge. We've been able to take a solution that was just an idea and build a product out of it, and then deploy it wide scale really, really quickly with the help of these teams and the work that they've done to really build that platform into something that fits our business, right? So it's been a huge, huge symbiotic relationship, and I honestly don't know if we could have done it without Dell or VMware. NVIDIA not so much. They're kind of off in the wings doing their own thing because they're NVIDIA, but it is a really special story that we really like to tell, and I appreciate the opportunity for being up here.
All right, I'm gonna transition over. Yeah. So I kind of alluded to some of the edge use case or the challenges at the edge. So I'm gonna go over some of that, because there are a lot of edge requirements that we pick up within the product team, and they all may not all align with one another. But just to kind of give you a sense of like how wide-ranging those edge profiles can be from a speed standpoint. Some sites operating on limited compute footprint, maybe it's the application workloads that they run, because It could be they just need to run a point of sales type of application, or it's like a Quest Diagnostics where there's a blood draw facility. They're running their point of sales, they do inventory, patient information, and that's pretty much what they're running in their edge sites. They have 1 or 2 lobotomists, and they do not have any IT personnel on those sites. Some sites could be streaming a large amount of data. Others could be using it, actually analyzing the data on site, and the time to insight is critical to their business model. When it comes to scalability, this growing number of use cases and also the growth of data is driving the need to increase the footprint in those edge sites, or even like going to multiple edge sites. Oh, sorry. All right. Hopefully this is better. Okay. All right, sounds better?
Yeah, it's way better.
Okay. So from a management standpoint, when you have that many edge sites or that much infrastructure to deploy out in the edge, management becomes a nightmare. You need visibility into all these different edge infrastructure, but having that visibility is going to be really tough. And at the same time, you also want to be able to manage them efficiently at scale, because you're not going to have IT personnel on site for each one of them. And Scott can attest for his business.
Yeah, we don't really have any technical resources in any of our venues. For the most part, we're managing these things completely remotely with a team of about 5 engineers that are focused on SDDC, right? So I think as of about a month ago, we've got about 600 VxRails spread across the globe. It's usually between 5 and 8 nodes per cluster, depending on the size of that venue. So it's a pretty big footprint for a small amount of engineers to manage. Yeah. It's been kind of a blessing, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure security is also a big concern.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you're deploying at a non-traditional data center environment, there's just additional layers of exposure that you're just not going to be accustomed to, and there are things that are really out of your control, and there's just more challenges from that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. It's from a security standpoint, the VxRail's been pretty dominant. We don't really have any issues out of the box with the configuration there, and we know that the STIG is out, and that's something that we're about to start testing to deploy to our sites as well, just to make sure that everything is locked down and nothing can be modified, right? So there's a lot of options with VxRail that come with it that kind of tie into the automation.
Oh, yeah.
That really help our business.
Yeah, I'll touch upon some of the benefits as well. Move along here. So in terms of what you would get out of a VxRail is first the VxRail HCI system software. I know a lot of you sat through the last session in which Bill was talking about the HCI system software. One of the main benefits is the lifecycle management. Being able to have that common software for all your edge deployments really gives you that really repeatable, consistent, secure outcome that you would need at the edge site. Because if you're talking about edge sites where you have limited IT personnel, you have limited bandwidth possibly, or geographical challenges, like when you have issues at the edge, it's just that much harder to troubleshoot and resolve them. So when you have a lifecycle management experience that can really give you the simple and consistent outcomes with the continuously validated states, that is supremely beneficial for people that need to manage all these different sites remotely. Automated system operations is another thing. Being able to effectively do system operations like shutting down a node, being able to have the intelligence to pre-check some of the things to make sure that it will actually check on these different things before it actually shuts down that node, so that way you can gracefully put it back up or bring it back up. Those are important things as well when you have to deal with it remotely. Customer deployable is another big thing. So all our clusters are customer deployable. So for experienced VxRail customers, they can get the operational efficiency by setting up the clusters on their own time. So there's also flexibility in that from that standpoint as well. Other things is like Smart Bundle. This is really targeted about limited bandwidth. So a LCM bundle for a cluster update is over 12 gigs in size now. So being able to right size the bundle is very important. So what VxRail does is it does a change analysis and determines which components need to be updated for the next cluster update. By knowing that, we can actually package only those install files and just send that over versus sending the entire package over. That really cuts down the amount of time needed to transfer that package over to that cluster at the edge site. Smart planning. This is really about providing all the insights that IT needs to determine whether to do a cluster update. This is about doing cluster readiness pre-check. It's about providing that change analysis so they can actually have all the information that they need to be able to create a IT change ticket, being able to then be able to schedule a maintenance window. All this information is provided in a singular report, just to make it easier for them to prepare for you, to do a cluster update, because all this information is something that you will need, but being able to have it in a single report cuts down a lot of time.
It does. It does. We use that all the time. We pre-validate all of our updates and make sure that things aren't going to break for the venue, because we only have a window of about 6 to 8 hours to do those upgrades in the venue before that thing comes back online and has to make money, right? So we've really had to find a solution that would kind of pare that down, and VxRail's worked. And quite frankly, the upgrade experience has evolved considerably since we started using it in 2018. They've been putting a lot of time into that lifecycle management, and it's really helped us with our business, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned the smart packages.
Yeah.
Those smart bundles are going to make an even bigger difference in our upgrade cycle, because right now, when we stage everything and pre-check everything, that typically takes about an hour to do, but it takes about an hour to upload that 12 gig package as well to those venues, right? Because they're all remote. We're pulling it down from the internet there, or we're pushing it there. And being able to kind of package that and get it a little more compact is going to make a big difference for us. We'll be able to do these upgrades a lot faster, focusing on the hardware in the VxRails that we have deployed to that site.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to skip over to the VD4000. Just going to touch upon some of the specs there. So I kind of mentioned like how small it is. You know, it fits in a backpack, 20 to 28 pounds. You can put this. You can put this in your data center. You can actually install it in a traditional rack, or you can have it in that half-width rack form factor. This could be mounted on a wall, because you can actually access all the hardware, the fans and things like that from the front. So this is designed with the idea of like, if you put this flush against the wall, you won't be able to access from the rear. So you actually can access a lot of this stuff from the front. Another thing is that this is the only vSAN HCI solution that has embedded vSAN witness. So in that backpack with that chassis, you can actually have a 2-node cluster with embedded witness, all self-contained within that chassis. So it's you can benefit from the space efficiency, as well as also the reduction in power that's needed for a 2-node cluster. Talking about the specs here. So I talked about the chassis. So there's two options. You have the 1U sled, compute sled, or the 2U compute sled that goes into the chassis. Both these sleds come with the Intel Ice Lake processor, the Xeon D processors. Scales up to 20 cores. So this is not meant to be like a high performance type of cluster. This is meant for the edge. So you're not talking about any running data, those SAP or anything like that. It has up to half a terabyte of memory. You can have up to half a terabyte of memory. You have 4 storage. You can have up to 4 storage devices, 1 cache, 3 capacity for the 1U. And you also have the NVMe Boss N1. And you have 4 onboard NICs, onboard NIC ports, whether it's 10 gig or 25 gig. For the 2U, this is the one that has additional flexibility, in which you can add additional network connectivity, or you can add additional NVIDIA GPUs. You can have 2 A2s, or you can have a single A30. Or you can also have 8 additional drive slots there if you want to increase capacity. So just want to speak to some of the flexibility that you have with the VD4000, and I'm going to pass it back to Scott to kind of talk a little bit more about your edge site and what those requirements look like, and also what your plans are for the VD4000.
Yeah, for sure. So for a typical Topgolf venue, this is kind of at a high level what it looks like, right? we're running traditional workloads, we're running databases, we're running AI/ML workloads with the camera that traces the ball flight in the venues. We're running the 3D gaming workloads on Horizon. And then we have a whole smattering of venue services that are proprietary to us that run in containers, that run in specific workloads for those services if they need more. And that's everything from the RFID systems to, we have wait time services that interact with our apps so that you can schedule things at the bay and make sure that you're not sitting there waiting for an hour before you get into a bay. All of that stuff has to run on a single platform. And the only one that we really found that fit the bill was the VxRail. So right now we're deploying your typical 2U V670s in venues. They're built to handle this kind of workload. This isn't necessarily what we'd need to put on like a VD4000, but this is what we need for everything else. So there's a lot of depth to what we have to run side by side and what needs to be segmented there and how we kind of schedule resources to make sure that none of that falls over. That's what's been a challenge, and Dell and VMware have really helped us kind of design this platform to meet that challenge, which has been honestly breathtaking. It's been a really great experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of I guess some of the benefits you get from automated system operations also helps you out because you don't have any IT personnel on site, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
occasionally
all these
we
things
get lucky,
really,
but usually no.
Yeah. If you can automate as much as possible with the intelligence to check on these things before you actually shut certain things down, that really helps out immensely because you don't have someone to troubleshoot it for you on site. So if you can get it done right the first time, it really cuts out a lot of the issues that come out if you don't do it right the first time.
Yeah, 100%. And there's also some weird things that we have to do that most of you probably don't, right? Two things you need to run a data center, power and cooling, right? If either one of those things stops, it usually takes, an hour to shut everything down cleanly in a typical data center. With us, we're able to do that in about 15 minutes, which has really helped open up a whole lot for us because we don't have to fix things as we bring these venues back up if they've had an issue with the power company or whatever, right? A lot of times when we build a Topgolf, it's in the middle of nowhere and we're having new services run to that place. Mm-hmm. So services can be a little unreliable at first, and you don't want, $250,000 of VxRails falling over and not coming back up. It's an investment that we all make, right? So the automation for the shutdown's been a huge thing for us that most people aren't going to touch, but maybe 2 or 3 times in the life of their cluster. Deployment automation's been another huge boon for us. Yeah. We've been able to automate our deployment almost end to end. We've got a couple of things to fill in, but it takes us 2 hours to stand up a VxRail and then another 2 hours to deploy everything that we need to it. Mm-hmm. And then we start handing it to teams for configuring apps. And that's cut our time from 2 weeks to about, a day, 3 days max.
And that's a lot
for deployment. Yeah.
That's a lot of money saved.
Yeah. It's huge. It's huge. Yeah.
I know we only have a couple of minutes left. I want to touch upon the VD4000 because you guys have a lot of cool use cases for it because it's not just the typical Topgolf venue that you have in store for the VD4000. You have other interesting sites to get to. So you want to transition to that slide? Yeah.
So we have a lot of different use cases for that platform specifically. It being ruggedized is kind of huge for us because some of these older venues that we haven't really retrofit, they don't necessarily have filtration. They don't necessarily have the cooling that you'd need. They don't necessarily have a really robust power infrastructure. The VD4000 would be able to fit that use case because it's got built-in filtration. It's got a really small form factor. So these venues that were early on in the UK, for example, they were built back in the early 2000s and don't necessarily have a data room. They've got like a little IDF, pretty much. And putting a box like the 4000 in there would be really beneficial because we can't stack 5 nodes of VxRail in those venues reliably, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a huge use case for it. replacing the aging servers there and making sure that we update those and get them where we need them to be. And then the office use case is another one, because all of our offices are satellite. We have centralized data centers. We've got cloud data centers. And right now, we have aging equipment in the offices that we could collapse into VD4000 stack that services both the labs that we need with GPU and all the other workloads that we have to run at those office locations for the people that work there, right?
Yeah, so you technically have earmarked for the VD4000 different configurations for different use cases, because you have some that requires GPUs, and there are some that requires a few more nodes than a couple of nodes on site. So the flexibility is a huge, game changer in a lot of ways, because it really allows a lot of customers and even our sellers to think of new ideas like, where can this VD4000 fit? Because there's a lot more things that it can do in a much smaller form factor in a non-traditional data center.
Yeah, and in addition to those more traditional workloads, we've got some really weird stuff. Topgolf Live. Yeah. Shipping that container of servers around is not usually an easy thing on servers. So when we set up at a new venue like Wrigley Field or whatever, we have to make sure that stuff is healthy when it arrives, because you don't want to spend the money for two of those systems, right? So having a ruggedized server that can handle that shock, and having a server that we can also incorporate GPUs in, so that we can manage that gaming workload and give people a similar experience to what they have in a venue in a place that doesn't have a venue, is pretty important, right? We want it to be kind of uniform. And VD4000 can do that for us in that use case, in the Topgolf truck use case that also exists under that one brand, and even Broadcast has a use case for that box.
All right, very cool.
Yeah.
I think that's all the time that we have. Appreciate your time and attention on this. And if you guys want to learn more about the VD4000, come to the Dell booth, and we'll be there. Well, at least I'll be there to talk more about it. And you can actually see it in person, because we have a few out there at the booth. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.